Okay, hello, hello. You have found yourself at the main stage. We're about to go into a session called AI and Human Capacity, designing events that support both. But before we get there, we have a few announcements for the good of the order. First things first, these headphones that you're using, you're the boss of them. You have a volume slider on the side of one side of your headphones. So things get a little raucous in here. We got the rappers over there. We got DJs over there. We got all sorts of crisscross applesauce happening all over the place. So if you are getting distracted by the environment, turn your volume up. If you find that we've gotten a little too loud, turn your volume down. You are the master of your volume ship. So we want to thank a number of folks who are helping us do this work. Of course, we want to thank our engineers who are giving us light. They are giving us sound. They're giving us these here headphones. Thank you to the technicians. We've got Audio Engineers Northwest on slides and lights, or sorry, on audio, as it would be indicated by their name. We've got Blue Danube Productions doing the lights and the sound. And then we've got Quiet Events headphone experts giving us these fabulous headphones so we can be grounded, available, present for this conversation that's about to happen to us. You might notice back there, Audio Engineers Northwest, Blue Danube, they are some VIP sponsors of this event, and they are here to meet with you, take your questions. If you need to charge your phone, our friends at Audio Engineers Northwest have phone chargers for you. Right back over there, we have Quiet Events. These are great for this genre event. Guess what? These headphones can be used for all kinds of events. Go and chat with them. They will give you the scoop on that. Now, if you need any sort of language interpretation or closed captioning, we've also got that for you via Interprify. And our friends, they're like, Sasha, what are you doing to me? You've gone out of order. I know. I'm throwing you for a loop, friends. Here we go. Just scan this QR code. That gets you into Interprify. There you will find closed captioning if you would like to have that service. We also have, as you see, a number of languages available for you. It's so easy. Again, just scan the QR code with your mobile device. That gets you right on into Interprify, where you can get those language services. So now, with no further ado, and exactly on time, we are going to turn you over to your fabulous panelists who you see right here. Again, they're talking about AI and human capacity, designing events that support both. And we're going to just hand it over to the trusty hands of our moderator, Anca Trifan.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for everyone making time out of this busy trade show to join us. If you have not put the headphones on, do it, because that's how you're going to hear us.
They can't hear you if they don't have them on.
No, not at all, like for sure. And I am super excited to have this conversation. I think this is a very important conversation. My name is Anca Trifan, and I am the host of Events Demystified podcast. A lot of the conversations that are happening on the podcast are all about AI, cognitive load, and performance. So that is what we're going to be tackling today. And with me, I have my co-host here, David T. Stevens, host of Return on Wellness. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I am a 20-year recovering corporate planner. I sat in your seat and or in your walked in your shoes for a long time. And until recently, I decided that corporate was too stressful. So why not start my own company? That's easier, right?
Yeah. The stress.
So we launched the world's only wellness-first events agency called Olympian Meeting. And on Return on Wellness is where we talk about the business value of wellness, because we know executives don't really care about something unless it impacts the bottom line. So that's the point of Return on Wellness, and that's why I'm excited to have this conversation and have an executive with us here on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the part where I would love for our guests to introduce themselves. And the reason why this conversation is so important and the reason why we want to bring it to you is because we have some specialists here. And I can't wait to hear what they have to say. So with that, I want to start with you, Wendy, and then Lisa. Please take a few moments to introduce yourselves, and then we're going to get into the topic and our conversation here.
Sounds good. And first of all, thank you, Anca, and thank you, David, for having us here. My name is Wendy Turner-Williams. I am a person who has operated at the intersections of products, technology, data, AI, cyber, you name it, and business value for the last 25 plus years. I've operated and led data and AI inside companies like Tableau, Salesforce, Microsoft, just a few companies you might have heard about. I know. And really, I am a person that helps people take information, turn it into intelligence, whether it's humans or machines, to run the world. Why does that correlate to this group? Well, frankly, because events are not just about logistics. They are about their performance, it's productivity, it's engagement, it's a lot of various things that you are building, and information is very, very helpful for that. And over to Lisa.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me here. I am Lisa Schulteis. I am the founder of Electroline Marketing. I'm an event strategist, and I speak internationally on incorporating neuroscience into event design.
Before I let you go on, everyone, Lisa has been planning this event. Can we give her a well-deserved applause? Thank you, Lisa.
I was about to say, my part-time gig is I am the executive director of the Northwest Event Show. That is my part-time job. But yeah, so I actually own 2 companies and run the show. So,
there was I did the right thing, right? It's less stress to own a business instead of being a corporate planner.
That's why she has 2.
Absolutely. That's why I started 2 and I run a 3rd. Like, I mean, come on. And speaking internationally, I tell people, I'm like, I have 4 jobs. I'm too old for this, but I have 4 jobs. So yeah, but that's what I do, is I speak basically on how we can incorporate neuroscience into event design, into leadership, into our sales, all of those different things.
I love that. Well, I want to set the stage with just a few things that I want to share. So I've been owning a production company for the last 20 years, have been operating in events on the production side. And back in 2018, I remember before AI was even part of this whole entire conversation, I was producing a lot of fundraising events. And during that time, I kind of took it upon myself to determine what kind of impact does up lighting in the room have at events and on bidding habits. Will people bid more if the lighting changes? So we were running experiments in different rooms with different lighting schemes, and then we found out a few different things. There was a change in habits in the way people were ready to donate to these fundraisers based on if the lighting was warm, if the lighting was cool, and it was very fascinating to learn how that impacts somebody's desire to engage with the event. And this was before, again, we were putting a name to cognitive overload neuroscience and all of that. And I presented that back in the days to this TEDx in Boise. I'm locally from Boise, so it was like, okay, here's the findings. They were not ready for that. Okay, let's just say, they're like, I don't know what this talk is about. It does not make any sense. I'm sure glad that I did put the time into it, because right now I feel like it's so important to look at the element of uplighting, the element of noise, the element of how do we actually design events. And that's how me and David were talking about, like, I do care a lot about AI, but with it comes such a high dose of cognitive overload. And when we were planning this conversation, we were like, oh my gosh, we need to address it. So that's where we brought a data scientist here. That's why we brought Lisa as a neuroscientist.
And her and I have been in AI long enough that it used to be called machine learning for the
True.
OGs.
True, imagine that.
Data science period before that, just not even the machine learning part. Yeah.
Absolutely. So capacity without recovery, when it comes down to it, it breaks, right? Cognitive overload increases, and that's where I think this conversation is so timely. So that being said, now that we know who we're talking to, I think it's important to start the conversation with, as I'm looking at you, Lisa and Wendy, I want to ask you, when you think about the biggest gap right now between how events, offsites, team gatherings, what you want to call them, are being designed, how do you see, what's that biggest gap in the way people are experiencing versus how we design them?
Yeah, so just to clarify also, because I always make a point of this because we're very specific in our industry to make sure that we're talking to the right people. I have a background in neuropsychology. I am not a neuroscientist. So I just want to make sure that piece
I'm
is
going to
absolutely
call
clear.
you my neuroscientist, Lisa.
because we do have people in the
It's
industry
true.
that do claim
Thank
for
you.
things, and I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. But in terms of design, you know, I tell people all the time, we design for logistics, but we don't design for the brain, right? So I have spent the last few months designing for a lot of logistics for this particular event, right? Because it's required. We have to, right? There are things that have to be done to make things happen. I have to make sure that my CAD design is done to make sure that when the fire marshal came yesterday that he actually didn't shut me down, right? So there are a lot of things that we design for logistics, but we have to design for the brain. So we have to look at, you know, what can we do to increase attendee engagement? What can we do to increase their attention? We all come to every single event with a lot of baggage, right? Whether it's our corporate baggage because, oh my gosh, did I get that project done? Did I do this? Did I do that? Then we have our personal baggage. Oh my gosh, my kid is at school. Now they're throwing up. Like, you know, there's
Then we have our swag bag.
Yeah, correct. We have that baggage too. So there's a lot of things. So we need to be looking at how people are processing things, whether we're looking at lighting, whether we're looking at sound, whether we're looking at, you know, are we wearing headsets on a busy floor, right? All of these different things. So we have to bring in that ability to design for our individuals and to design for their brain.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think that when I think about events, first of all, I'm not an event planner. I'm an executive who gets touted on stage, right? So I have one job, and that's to network or give a speech or, you know, whatever that may be. But I think that when I think about most events, I think about they're optimizing for a run of the show, right? They're not optimizing for you, the attendee, especially in a way that lets you come back and remember any type of information that you gained or experience that you had. I don't know how many conferences that I go to where I kind of, you know, the day after, I'm wiped out because there's so much happening all over. So I'm just physically wiped out. But second of all, I don't remember what was important. I don't action anything from the event. And I think if that's one thing where I think AI may be able to help in the future in regards to just taking statistics, taking feedback, reading the room, the different things that it can do to make those experiences better. Because really it's about what somebody leaves with, not that somebody just came, right? If someone just comes and they don't leave with anything, that's less amount of people are gonna come for the next event.
Yeah, so I'd like to ask you a question, Wendy, and this might be applicable to everyone. Have you ever been in an executive board meeting or an executive boardroom planning for customer conference, user conference, sales kickoff, and somebody on the E-team said, hey, I think we might be overloading people's brains? Has that ever happened?
I have never had that happen ever. And again, I would say that often, to be honest, the boardrooms or a lot of the executives, frankly, aren't deeply engaged in the event planning in itself, right? It has the idea that it's been planned, it's been budgeted for, and then they hand it off to, you know, the event planners or the EAs or the groups to do it, and they don't know. They actually, I think that there's a blindness that happens, an invisibility that happens in relation to the cognitive overload. Because if you think about it in another way, these event planners, back to AI, you're using tools, you're using AI to help you now plan these events. But the reality is that the quality of the data might be bad. There's not clarity in what you're going to use AI for, what you're not going to use it for, or there's not clarity on who makes a decision if something is wrong, okay? If something is wrong. And so those are kind of blind spots that are happening, and it adds even more cognitive load to the people who are building the system of the event. They've now become the system and the gap filler because the automation is not there to help them.
So my follow-up question then is, if we see that the blind spot has, we see it, we're like, oh, they have not thought this through, because usually the C-suite puts together the agenda and then we have to execute on it. When we see it and we go, oh crap, this is not going to work. How do we go back to that C-suite and say, hey, we have some challenges here that we need to address?
So to me, this is where AI, again, is going to be very helpful. Use the data to your own benefit. Don't have an emotional conversation. Don't have here's a list of all these things that went wrong, or you didn't tell me, or you didn't give me enough time. Come with actual data that shows trending over time, especially, and come with the impact that has. Why is that a problem? And why should we not do that again, right? Why do we need to solve for that? I think that's the most important way to have a conversation with any executive, especially.
I want to bring this to Lisa now because you've been deep in planning for this particular event, and it's pretty fresh. Sorry if this gives you a little bit of PTSD, but as you were having those conversations, right, at the C-level, but then you had to implement it in practice, as you're looking at the agenda for this particular event, and where do you see the conversations that are being had here with what's happening here, where is that out of sync, and what are we unintentionally making harder for the brain when we put all of this together?
That's not a loaded question at all.
Don't worry, it's only being recorded.
It's only being recorded. It's
And
fine.
video.
In like 3 different places, right? It's fine. So there's a few things going on, right? So we know that, you know, we know about cognitive overload, right? We all hear about it. We all talk about it. We are looking at it when we're looking at our agendas, at what's happening at the event. But we also need to be looking at fatigue, right? We need to be looking at how people are processing information. So, you know, even for this event, Stuart and I have had conversations where we're like, okay, well, when we're designing this event, you know, we kind of, you know, you plan it first, right? And then you have to kind of take the step back and be like, okay, are we designing this for the exhibitors for this piece, or are we designing it for the attendees? Or have we somehow magically been able to design it for both, which is our sweet spot, right? And even yesterday with education, right? Where are we building in the breaks? How many rooms do we have running at the same time? These are all questions that we come back and we look at because we need to make sure that we're asking the right questions. And I think, you know, we're going to design initially based on what we have to do, but then we have to come back and look at fatigue factor. We have to, you know, how many of you get up, you walk into a room, and then you're like, I don't know why I'm here, right? I do it like 15 times a day, right? Because I'm busy doing 15 other things, and so I'm not focusing. So we really lose focus at events a lot, and we need to find a way to actually build that focus in and give people a chance to breathe, give people a chance to process, give people a chance to reset. So it's really, really important in our design process.
Absolutely. I'm going to take this to you because you're all about wellness, and you have a big speech about how it's important and performance and all of that. But when you layer what Lisa just said, and that's done over multiple days, right? We're talking about processing, context switching, reacting, new inputs, new information, all of that. What does that do to our energy levels and our clarity and our decision quality?
Yeah, well, everyone knows there's first day energy, and everyone knows there's last day energy, right? Like, anybody here go to IMEX? Few people, yeah. I know you haven't. It's okay. It's a 3-day marathon where you have 6 to 8 20-minute meetings with suppliers over the course of usually 3 days. And
Sounds like a nightmare to me.
but it's a very effective use of time, and you can get a lot accomplished. And but that last day energy on the show floor is it's also in Vegas. So there's people who are going full Vegas, and there are other people who are not, like myself. I remember, I think one time you asked me, you're like, are you going to Rendezvous? And Rendezvous is a party. And I was like, what time does that start? And she said 9 p.m. I was like, nope.
Oh, at 10 p.m.
Oh, it starts at 10, regardless. Okay.
And it goes to like 2, and I'm like, yeah, no.
Exactly.
So I'm too old.
So some people are going hard in Vegas and doing the Vegas thing, and other people aren't. And that's, you know, you get to choose your own adventure. But being able to moderate, I don't think people should leave an event exhausted. They should leave energized. And the reason we put these meetings and events and conferences and spend millions of dollars to produce them is so that we leave better than when we got there. And if you are building a program and running people into the ground, you're undermining your own objective. You're literally cutting your own legs off because you are not enabling those people to reset, to process, if you're not giving them the opportunity to connect with each other. We did a thing at IMEX last year that was called Forgetting Curve Journaling. And we work with a performance psychologist. And if you don't re-engage with content within 48 hours of first experiencing that content, you're likely to forget at least 80% of it. So what we did was we did a journaling class on the 3rd day of IMEX. And it was a simple thing, but if you pitched it to an executive as saying, we're going to do a journaling class after closing session. They're like, you're out of your what? So we called it the forgetting curve class, which then it sounds very different, right? And we ask people simple questions. Who was your best meeting with? Who's the new person you met that you can't wait to follow up with? Those kinds of things left them in a different place. It also impacted their perception and their perceived value of that event because they were leaving with a recap of everything they did. How many people are the standard response, hey, how was the show? It was great. What do you mean it was great? Case in point, back to the executive. If your executive pays for you to go to a conference and they want to know how was it, and you say it was great, you aren't going back to that conference.
So let's take it to Wendy, because I want to hear what you have to say about how do we change then the mindset. Like there's something that has to be done from a leadership point before we even get to implement those changes really at a micro level.
Well, I think there's a couple of things, and if I was to break this into two different pieces, one we talked about what do people leave with, right? What's the value that people leave with? We also talked about the people who are organizing the events, the workers. And the reality is there's maybe two different approaches. I think there's a lot of invisible labor that happens when it comes to forming events, okay? And even if you're using tools to help you with AI, et cetera, you are still having such a cognitive load to bridge the gap between what the systems don't know. Like how many of you have organized events and you know what that executive likes? You know some type of dietary preference. You know the questions aren't being asked. You just know, and you just make those things happen because one mistake costs trust, and you've learned that over time. So one, I think that there is a lot more focus that needs to happen with executives to understand the work that it takes to successfully put on an event, to organize the event, and to have the attendees actually walk away with value of the event. I don't see very many quantifications that happen, at least to my level, at the executive level. I don't get a list I don't get data related to that except for here's who attended. And here was the sessions, or maybe here was the top session. But back to you again, it could have been, it was just good. It's not enough feedback, right? So get more specific. The more specific you are, the more the executives can help you with staffing or help understand that workload or help provide the right tools. Back to the attendees themselves, I think it's the same thing, right? Like, do real time queries of audiences. Do you like this? Do you not? Thumbs up, thumbs down. There's all types of wonderful tools out there that can help inform in a much better way. And the more knowledge you have, the better.
I love that. I'm going to tell a quick story because it just came out from Anthropic. So Anthropic ran a 1-week experiment where they had AI agents work on behalf of buyers and sellers during this 1-week experiment. And what they were trying to determine was if there was any benefit or fairness in the process. But what was interesting about the study was that people didn't necessarily care much about earning better or like maybe having a deal, getting a deal from AI bidding on their behalf, or maybe paying less or more versus of just not having to deal with it in the first place. So it was removing the friction because to them it was more important to not have to think about it. It was done. Sure, it cost me maybe $2 more in the process, but I don't care as long as it was done, check, move on to the next thing. So the reason why I mentioned that, because I think it's important when it comes to the way we think about, right, cognitive overload in the context of events. And when we think about the multi-day events like Northwest Event Show, one thing that I wanted to ask you, Lisa, because this is something that I was trying to sort of like find a pocket of decompression. Are we intentional about strategizing how are we incorporating those pockets of decompression? What does that mean? A place where, as a ambivert that needs moments to be alone after having interacted with people for a while, I want to just be alone by myself. I end up going to sleep, super early last night after a whole day of education. Are we thinking about that, or is that more of an afterthought?
It depends on who you're working with. So some of my clients are really, really good about it. And some of my clients are just like, no, this is what we need to do, right? And I'm like, but, right? So And you mentioned data, right? Data is a huge challenge in this industry when we're talking about anything that is related to how people process information, how people are getting, that return on engagement, all of those different things. So it really depends on who we're working with. We have to build it in, though. I actually have a research project starting in 2 weeks. If anybody wants to be a guinea pig in it, we're going to run a virtual event and have 2 groups that we are treating one thing different in terms of engagement to see how it affects memory formation post-event, because we need that data, right, so that we can make decisions on it. And then that way we can go back to our clients and say, we need to build in these pockets, right? I am an extroverted introvert. I am really an introvert. Nobody believes me. That's because I can fake it all day long.
But it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And I get to my hotel room at night, and people who know me well know that after I hit my hotel room, do not talk to me, do not look at me, do not do anything, right? Like, I am in my room, leave me alone, because
Sound just like me.
Yeah,
Me too.
I need it, right? I have to get my power level up for the next day, or I can't walk into the event, right? So we have to be able to treat different people different, give them different ways to re-energize, give them different ways to have those different engagement levels so that they get different returns on this big 1 day, 2 day, 5 day thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Quick
hard.
question, a follow-up to what Lisa said to you, Wendy. When you think about data collection of those type of inputs, have you seen any intentional, smart ways to do it in a way that it's actually helpful and works?
So unfortunately, I'm not usually deeply involved with the inventing team to see what they get, right? So, but I will say this, especially if you're at a corporation, a good-sized corporation, work with your marketing teams. Okay, I mean these teams have tools that do sentiment analysis, that do who should we be angling to, who should we treat your events like a marketing campaign, like a true marketing campaign. Because it is not some type of side thing, right? But make a partnership there and use the data. They have the tools, they have the information to help you, and that will make you be more effective. I do want to add on the concept of friction. Speed, I wrote this down so I would not forget it. So sorry, it's really good, I promise. That's why I wrote it down. Speed creates friction when it removes the pause where judgment was once used. Okay? So back to, we're going faster and faster. We're trying to speed these events. We're trying to speed the build. We're trying to speed the completion of it, right? We're trying to now use tools like AI to help us. Human judgment still matters. Knowing where to put that judgment in, to even with speed, to get the right outcomes is the most important thing that you can do.
Something you said earlier gave me a flashback. So at one point, I was on the keynote team at Salesforce, and I worked a couple Mark events. And he always wanted a towel on the table that was next to his chair with his iced tea so that he could wipe the bottle down.
Yeah.
AI is never going to know that. And it's
Never.
probably never going to make it to his hospitality writer. It was just one of those things that got shared, right?
Yeah.
That you learned. And so, yeah, judgment is so important. And we just, I've never heard the term invisible labor, and I will never forget it.
It's true, though. I mean, again, like, how many people did it take to put on this event?
Oh, not enough. You actually don't want that answer.
Well, it was actually, you're leading to my second question, which is how many people were doing multiple roles, and how many times were you solving for problems that weren't written down and it just came from the experience, right? So back to, again, like I'm a big proponent of tools, obviously. I build tech all day, every day. That's what I do. But be smart with it. It cannot replace the person or the experience. Use it where it will actually augment you in a good way.
I love that. This conversation could be going longer than what it is, but we have to wrap it up at one point. So what I want to ask you both as a last question, what is the one thing that event professionals need to change if we were to make an impact in the topic of cognitive overload and how we're designing events? Keep it to one sentence if you can, but let's go. Lisa, you first.
One sentence.
One long sentence.
That's it, you're done.
Run-on sentence. We absolutely have to build in intentional white space with a way for people to reset and refocus. I'm going to do a second sentence. And what that means is that's not a coffee break. That is building a space where we can do things, whether it's writing things down afterwards, whether it's asking questions after each session or after each experience, that people can write that down, get it into their memory, right, before they move on to the next item. And that's what we need to build in.
And I agree with this. I would just say that less is more, okay? Remove one thing if you're adding more things in, like remove more friction where you can before you add any more tech or tools.
Okay, and one last question. In your opinion, what's something that is coming in the next 6 to 12 months maybe that most people are maybe not ready for?
Please keep it non-political.
Yeah. So digital doubles is coming. Okay. So we moved past the age of AI just giving answers to now it's doing actions. It's sending emails. It's building slide decks. It's presenting. It's even running meetings. I saw this the other day. People weren't even there. They built a bot to run a meeting, literally. So it's here. It's happening. Be prepared for it.
Yeah, I don't think I even want to follow up after that one. It's just, there's so much that's coming so fast. And I mentioned this morning in another session, everybody always has shiny object syndrome. So there's so much that's coming. And my fear is that people are just going to adopt without thinking.
I have a wild speculation, and I hope I'm wrong. Much to what you were talking about, I had a feeling maybe a couple years ago, that they were going to the tech companies were going to start creating digital BDRs or SDRs that are fully trained on gong calls, because people get distracted when someone says something that makes them uncomfortable or whatever, and they'll go off script. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is some shady AI company that actually goes and trolls that prospect's Instagram and sees what Insta models they're liking pictures of, and then builds an avatar that looks like some hybrid of that. So this prospect has a call with someone who looks like their favorite Insta model, goes through the whole qualification process and gets them basically completely sold. And the sales rep doesn't even get the call until after they've been qualified.
Stuff like that's already happening. I don't know if you saw, there was a big bank breach that happened about a year ago in I think China. It was all 100% alternative truth, not real, with interactions, talking through languages, etc. So just be careful. Again, tech is your friend, but use good judgment.
I love that. Now that we scared you shitless, what the
IRL
future
will
is.
win. In
Thanks,
real life,
David.
will win.
We would love for you to connect with these wonderful ladies. And where would they be able to do so, Lisa and Wendy, if they want to learn more about what you do, and especially how you can continue this conversation offline?
I live on LinkedIn every single day, so I'm pretty easy to find there. That would be mine.
Me too.
I have a QR code.
I think we all live on LinkedIn if you would like to engage with us further. And then we want to thank you for your time, as well as tune into the podcast, and don't be strangers. Tell us if this was a conversation that actually made something happen in your mindset.
We got a real-time feedback. We
Thank
got a thumbs
you.
up.
Yes,
Thank you.
I see.
Oh,
One
several
fan.
thumbs up.
One fan.
Fans,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay.
All right, let's give a round of applause for our panelists. When we're doing that silently, we give sparkle fingers. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you so much, Anca Trifan, David Stevens, Lisa Schulteis, Wendy Turner-Williams. Thank you so much for your expertise. Friends, we have another session coming up in 15 minutes called Seattle Welcomes the World. If you're going to stay with us, feel free to hang on to your headphones. If you are going to go move on and do something else, set your headphones down so we can clean them in between. Again, we'll be right back here in 15 minutes with Seattle Welcomes the World. See you soon.